pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The next item is approval of minutes from October 15, 2014. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Ryan, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Fred. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I think I abstained.
Yeah, I think you were absent, Kathy. So one abstention, motion carries. In terms of the agenda, I'm going to ask if we could add to the agenda for number 7 would be application for a FEMA grant assistance to firefighters program from the Portland Fire Department. And Chief Shea is here to talk about that. With that one addition and all the numbering to occur sequentially 8, 9, 10, etc., is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Brian, and seconded by
Yeah.
Kathy? Brian Flood. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I do not have anything under communications tonight. Next item is public comment. Yes, sir. And if you would, please, when you come up, let us know your name and address so that you can be recorded. Excuse me for just a minute. Is there someone in the video booth?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see you. Okay, thank you. So if you could go up to the podium, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gregory Young. I live at 326 Main Street, Apartment 1. I am a renter. I've been resident of Portland for 7 years now, 7.5 years, and I really love the town. I've been meaning to get out here for these. And here's
Well,
my first
welcome.
one tonight, and I'd like to keep coming out. But, you know, I'm just here, and I don't mean to be too out of place, but the only reason I came here tonight is because on October 5th, I reported a criminal matter to the Portland Police Department, and I just wanted to make sure that it was on people's radar. I hadn't heard anything back. It's been a month today.
Officer Bond did contact me this
Very good.
afternoon, so I'll be following up on that. And because it is under investigation,
Yes.
we don't want to divulge any specific
Absolutely not.
information.
But I just wanted to go on the record and saying that, you know.
And I know they have your number, so we can keep it.
They certainly do, and I heard from Officer Bond today, and I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, good.
And I do a lot of gardening there on 326 Main Street. I'm in the Bruce Morrison row of townhomes. I'm the first one there, and I hope that over the last 3 years, everyone has noticed some of the work I've done there.
Yes, very nice, I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, welcome, Mr. Young, nice to have you. Okay, the next item, Chief Shea, is application for a FEMA grant, Assistance to Firefighters Program for the Portland Fire Department. And Bob, if you want to talk about this?
A little bit last minute. Apologize for that, but over the past 2 months, we've been working on trying to put a regional grant together for the FEMA, the AFG portion of the FEMA grant this year. And we decided to go with a regional grant with our partnership, mutual aid partners throughout the Middlesex County. And what we're looking for, and we've done this in the past, and we've, I think, received just under $500,000 over 6 or 7 years on this grant process. So our total grant that we'll be requesting, hopefully by Friday, submitting, trying to get it in as early as possible. The grant opened on Monday. Will be for approximately $1.9 million spread out between 4 fire departments. And primarily it's for the replacement of our SCBA, which is our air packs. And I have one here if you're not sure what they are. Their average cost right now runs about $8,500 a set. We expect that to be up around the $9,000 mark. So this is something that we received back in 2004-05 on a AFG grant as well. Portland received an award, and we're due to make some replacements, primarily for the fact that interoperability is a concern for firefighter safety right now. And what is happening is, with our mutual aid agreements becoming fulfilled more and more each day based on our activity as departments, meaning we're helping each other as Middletown helps Portland, and we do the same with our surrounding towns. We need to be able to work together with the same equipment, and that's a big concern. So by submitting this grant, we're hoping that we're all on the same page, we're all wearing the same devices that we can quickly change out together. In the event that we have a trapped firefighter, we're able to go in and use the same equipment to deliver air until that firefighter is rescued, and or use the same equipment on scene together as, you know, some of them run out. So it's a very important safety aspect for what we're doing. The local match is 10% because it's a regional versus 5%. Our portion of that particular grant is it's a $422,000 grant, and our portion would be about $42,000 of that. So what I'm looking for in advance of submitting it, which other towns are doing also, Susan drafted a resolution
Yep,
for your
it's with the
approval
green
to
sheet,
move forward.
and I'll read it so that you can hear it too.
Yeah, and just before you do that,
Yep.
Susan, we are under bottle replacement program now, which the bottle, as part of this pack, expires. So we're in the middle of replacing them as we go, but we still have another 40 to do in the next 4 years. So if this grant is rewarded to the department, that'll save us $48,000 in just the bottle replacements that we have expected to have to expend in the next 4 years. It's just $48,000 in savings, which is more than what our match is for the grant. So that's a home run for us. And most importantly, our compressor is extremely old. The compressor that fills these bottles has to be certified and tested each month. Certified yearly, tested each month. We send an air sample away, and it's tested each month. Compressor is up for replacement in the next 3 to 4 years because it's not going to be able to fill the newer generation bottles. And right now, the current price of the compressor is $52,000. That's included in this grant. So there's another long-term savings. So it's a home run for us as well as some other departments, but you know, we have some benefits because we're in the midst of replacing some equipment, and we hopefully can absorb some of that in the grant. So there'll be some future savings. That's about it.
Okay. So whereas there is an opportunity for the town to apply with its regional partners of Middletown, Westfield, South District, and Middlefield for a Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program in an amount of $1.9 million, and whereas there is the need in Portland to replace or purchase specific firefighting equipment, including 39 Scott Air Packs, a firefighting tracking device, and a new compressor for the total cost of $422,318.34. And whereas there is a local match of 10%, of which Portland's share would be $42,231.83. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Susan Bransfield as first selectman of the town of Portland to sign and file any and all documents on behalf of the town of Portland as it pertains to a grant application to FEMA for an AFG program grant on behalf of the Portland Fire Department, of which 90% will come from federal funds and 10%, or $42,231.83, will come from local funds. So I think that captures what Chief just said. And is there a motion on the resolution? So moved, Carl?
Yes, so moved.
And seconded by
Second.
Brian Flood?
That was,
I'm sorry?
did Brian say?
He did. I heard him.
I started to mumble so moved,
Yeah.
but Carl gave me credit, so I think I jumped into the second, but it doesn't really matter.
Sure. Discussion, Kathy?
The firefighting tracking device, what is that?
That is we currently use a SIM device, Kathy, and what it's an electronic device, and as soon as you turn this pack on, It identifies that pack number on a computer system, so we can track firefighters. This
Where they
track,
are.
this tracking device has the ability, GPS-wise, to be able to track firefighters' location. So we can get to them a little quicker than, you know, we have a down firefighter, we have to assume that we know their last location. This is gonna make it a little easier, and it's included in that package.
Other questions?
Yeah, I just was wondering, so the total amount of the grant, the 4 towns would be receiving 1.9 million, and Portland's portion of that is the 422.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're second in line.
okay.
We're the
What are
second.
the other towns again?
Middletown, the
Yep.
city of Middletown, which includes Westfield, which is a separate district,
Mhm.
and South District, which is a separate district of the city, and Middlefield.
Okay.
And there was some very strict restrictions on the grant, that being that you couldn't have a new pack. 2007 was the cutoff. So if you had a failed pack and you had to buy a new one to replace it, you're exempt from the grant. So we were lucky enough to maintain our equipment where we didn't have to actually replace a serial number.
2004?
4, 5.
4, 5?
5 is the, when we had the delivery, so most of the stuff is 5.
And those were purchased with a grant as well.
They
Same.
were 275,000.
Right.
Which town, do you know where where we're getting the money from the fund?
Well, it'll be in capital, but we talked a little bit about the fact that because we have in the budget on a yearly basis between $10,000 and $13,000 for staggered replacement of the bottles, and we won't have to spend that for replacement, those dollars would be equal to about $48,000, of which we would need $42,000. So while it's not there, it will be. In fact, I think maybe
There's a year there, I think.
1
right
year is
now.
there now, so
Yeah.
13,000 we will not spend out of this year's capital.
Okay.
So we will have to put that money into the budget for next fiscal year within the capital fund. So some of it may be expended next year, or it may even go into the next year, but because it's in the capital fund, we'll be able to do that because it'll be earmarked for that particular need.
We've recognized that in capital the last couple of years that we.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Yeah, I
2 years.
remember talking
That's
about
right,
the
correct.
bottles,
Putting it in.
2 years, yeah.
Last 2 years, so
Right.
it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It's a great, good
Perfect
block.
timing for
Hope
us.
we make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's nice that we get considered in this.
Yeah, very good.
Well, part of this is due to the fact that Chief is the president, or is it Jim? President of the Fire,
State Chiefs Association?
State Chiefs Association, thank you.
Yeah, but we've been working for about 6 months now with the area chiefs, trying to find a way through the grant process. And taking classes that they offer throughout the year, kind of pinpointed us to where they're looking to fund. And it's a big regional approach this year. They want departments to work together regionally
Yeah.
to offset some of the costs to run a department, as well as,
The safety.
yeah, and better fund those departments through these grants. So
Yeah.
we went that way
Yeah, I like it.
instead of individually.
Yeah, it's very good. Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Chief.
Good job, Pete.
The next item, let's see, is number 8, which is steep grant priority selection. And, let me see. We do not have anything particularly on this, because we've talked about this now, I think, for 3 meetings, 2 or 3 meetings. And as I recall, I think I sent you an email today that was some information that was from Rick Kelsey. And Rick is here today. I know that my recommendation would be that we address the replacement of the water main on Spring Street. And there would be adequate funds at least to replace the water main. There would not be, within the STEEP program, enough to rebuild the road with sidewalks and other work. There would be a blended amount, maybe over 500,000 if you just wanted to do sidewalks, but I would recommend that we go for the $500,000 number within the STEEP program and make it for the water main and other improvements to that road. And one of the reasons I wanted to put it on tonight is Chief Shea is here too, and he had written a letter of support for this, and so had our fire marshal, because that water main has broken several times over the last few years. And it's certainly a vital section in order to ensure good public safety in terms of fire flow for water flow. for fires. So I'll open it up for questions or other nominations for the grant. Or if you agree with me, we can.
What,
make
I
it-
just wanna know what area this will, if we do get the grant, how much it will cover. I know we have a lot of
Rick,
old
you want to address
pipes.
that, please? I sent it in an email to them. I did not print it.
There's a little bit, just a very little bit, one page of information that probably will clarify.
Pass those down. Thank you.
Maybe you've had it, maybe you haven't. What I did is I tried to provide three options, so we could hit the mark within the 500, or if you wanted to go further. But to answer your question, Ryan, the section in question is between High Street and East Main Street. And
Yeah,
that's
the
asbestos
wavy
pipe.
part.
Below that, we have cast iron pipe. And that totally fits. So what I tried to do was, assuming we had only $500,000, you have three options here. One is if you just chose to replace the main like we did on High Street. So you'd replace it with a new main and tie in the services, you're looking at around $385,000. If you chose to do, a full-blown restoration of that section of roadway, which we've talked about sidewalk, we've talked about road reconstructions, it would be around $760,000. And a kind of a reasonable compromise of what I could come up with would be, you'd replace the water main, you'd replace the section there, there's quite the majority of it, there's about 1,050 feet of kind of quote sidewalk, but it's not really, it's an extension of the pavement, we paint a white line on it. You'd replace that section with a new concrete sidewalk, and you'd overlay the entire road with a 2-inch overlay, and it would be slightly, well, my estimate's based on not anything very detailed and prices from previous projects. So if we're optimists, we do all that for $500,000. If we're not, well, you folks could make the choice to kick in the additional to make that happen. Or, should you want to do the road in accordance with the road regulations, you'd have to come up with a fair amount more. So, but I can set the bid documents up, and I would set the bid documents up with your concurrence. I can set this thing up as we typically do, with what we call add alternates or deductive alternates. So in other words, I'd bid this project out as complete, we'd get the prices, we'd see if it fits into your budget. If it doesn't, we'll deduct part 1, part 2, part 3 till we hit our mark. So that was, and we have the time, I think, to do that. So that's where we're at.
Kathy?
How many, I know what that is, but how many feet is
1,600.
that?
1,600 feet, more or less.
Would you have to put the design work out to bid too, or?
Well,
I mean,
we typically, and as we did the last one, we used our town engineer who's done all our water work. That's one option for you. You could go to RFQ, you could, any number of options, you could do. So yes, and this assumes, these prices assume a 10% contingency and a 25% fee for engineering. So hopefully they're reasonably close, but again, they're estimates. We've been down this road before, so I try to err on the high side. But we can hit the mark of $500,000. How we prepare the application gets a little trickier. For example, that's gotta be done between now and the end of the month.
Yes.
So, my suggestion would be the wording that you kinda said is
Yes.
we plan to replace a water main and do other improvements up to
Mhm.
$400,000 or $500,000. And then we can hopefully.
So would
get
you
that.
put that on the same side where the water main is now?
I could do either or. Basically, the water main runs the north side, sewers in the middle, and then you got some storm drains in there. I think there's enough space. I originally was looking at the south side, but looking at it again, I got enough room, I think I can put the water main in, irregardless. I could put the water main in, I think, and I would probably between the existing water main and the sewer. And I think I have enough space, which 6 of 1/2 doesn't do that.
If you go there, though, you might not have rock, right? Wouldn't you have
I got rock.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this is when the water main breaks, we have some rock. Fortunately, it's rippable.
It is.
So far.
Yeah.
But I'll have to put some allowance in for blast.
Mm.
But the problem we have there a little bit when you get into reconstructing is we're fixed, there's a lot of driveways up and down, so you're kind of,
Yeah.
it kind of fixes what you can do.
Right.
But the sidewalk there would be a big plus.
Yes.
And there's a lot of kids that walk up and
Yes.
down there,
Right.
and
They go
it
to
would be
school.
it's a good project.
Adults walk up there too.
And adults.
That's 1,600 feet, John?
Yeah, approximately.
Well, is that all asbestos too?
That's all asbestos.
Great. Get rid of it.
Yeah, well, some of it is, some of it's been replaced, but so be it. But again, each break is approximately 50,000, so, and there'll be more.
So this has to go in by the end of the month?
The
And then will it be
application.
awarded before the spring?
We don't know. They award on a rolling basis, so we don't know, Kathy.
You know, typically, how much have we gotten in years past? Has it always been 500, or have we gotten less?
What the administration has done is they typically will give you what you ask for, up to the maximum, which is 500,000.
Okay.
We haven't always asked for the maximum of 500,000. The last one we received was 326.
326.
For the water and sewer extension onto the Riverfront Park and other things for that project.
Can someone refresh my memory as the criteria for this project versus a different project in terms of getting the grant?
Public safety, number one, because it's a main artery of water.
I don't mean general criteria, I mean the criteria of the grant. In other words, there's various.
Yeah, I know, and I handed out the whole
Right.
letter last time. I'll look and see if I have it
Infrastructure
in my
was
file.
included in that, I believe.
Infrastructure, I believe, is-
Yeah. We talked about this 3 meetings ago, I think.
I understand.
and
That's
did
why I'm
have-
asking to
sorry,
refresh
I
my
don't
memory. I understand.
know that I have it with me.
And then I guess my other thinking about this is, so Rick, you're talking about 1,600 feet, right?
Yes.
How many feet are we talking about, whether it's
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
entirely? You know,
The
the
entire-
whole
the
system
entire-
is a problem, right?
No, well, not as much of a problem. But what, if we're talking specifically about Spring Street, that particular, I'm not, go ahead, ask your
Yeah,
question.
so I guess my thought process is that this seems to me to be a bigger problem, right? And we've been talking about water for years.
It is.
And this seems to be a very huge problem. And it seems to me that this is sort of patchwork to do this, and I understand it needs to be done, and you need to find the money to do it. But it seems to me that it's a bigger problem, and the whole thing should be bonded, and it should all be taken care of, right? I mean, that just seems to be a more appropriate way to handle this issue. And if you're getting this grant, to use it for something else, but it just seems more logical to me.
That's a question for you folks.
Yeah.
You know, you have any
Bonding was
possibility
gonna
to
take
do it?
a long time. You gotta decide how much you're gonna bond. You have to get a financial, of course, plan for how that would be accommodated. There would have to be a referendum, and you typically do that in November, so you wouldn't even be able to get approval until next November.
Meanwhile,
In
this could
terms
break.
of the needs of the water and sewer divisions, they're tremendous, yes. And we spent over $1 million on the High Street water main and the improvements to the water tanks. And that was through the drinking waters, thank you, state revolving loan fund. And the process for that application was over a year, I believe.
It was.
And then bidding requirements for that. This is, as we learned from the residents, this is a major need, and it's almost of a crisis need, because the water main broke 3 or 4 times this year.
To try to answer the bigger question.
Yeah, because I don't doubt any of that.
Yeah,
I agree that all this needs to be taken care of.
Try
Yeah,
to
sure.
answer it
Yeah.
from a practical matter. The brakes go to the point of least resistance, so the point of least resistance 3 years ago was High Street. We fixed High Street. Now, the next point of least resistance is Spring Street. And the next point of least resistance is gonna be Proud Acres. All asbestos pipe, and that we have miles of it, many miles of it. 7 miles, 8 miles, 9 miles, I don't know. a lot of asbestos pipe. So what happens is it's a function of age of the asbestos pipe and the location with regard to pressure. The reason these drapes are the worst is because you got 101.5 million gallons sitting above, right immediately above this thing. And it's putting pressure on the lines. However, we have asbestos out where, on old South Road and stuff, but it's not under, it's not under pressure. And it's fairly resilient, knock on wood. I am superstitious. So, do you have to replace all the asbestos? Obviously, no, and you can't practically. So I think we're, unfortunately, being not proactive, we're being a little bit retroactive. So if you're asking me what would I recommend you do as the next phase of water main replacement, I would suggest to you that you would do this section, and then you would begin to look at Brownstone Avenue and Proud Acres, of which there is, and the dollar number for that would be, I don't know, between 5 and 10 million probably, just to keep things, you know.
It's about $1 million a mile.
Yeah, more. So it's a
More or
very
less.
large number.
I had
Fred?
a couple of comments too. I actually agree with that, with the priority list, putting it up on top. I think we have a obligation for maintaining our infrastructure. That certainly, they made the case, and the case has been made, that that's a problem. There are other problems too. The money probably will be available, and it probably is the quickest way to get at it. So I would support that. I think there were some good presentations, and I guess maybe we, at some point, as we look at policies, we can take a look at some of the other presentations that were made, because we do have a lot of folks coming in from our commissions asking for things, and they're making some pretty good cases for the fact that we need to do something. So I think the Recreation Department made a real good case, and I think we ought to start talking about that at some point in the future. But I do agree that at this point in time, I'll support this.
Anybody else?
Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
Rick, you say 7 or 8 miles of asbestos pipe. Now, would that include like
I'm thinking it.
Gilders, yeah, that's fine, but Gildersleeve area, is that asbestos
You
or
have
that's just
asbestos,
old?
asbestos is kind of a function of the age when the development
Yeah.
occurred. In the 50s, they put in a lot of asbestos. So we have, for example, asbestos, a lot of asbestos, all the Proud Acres section, Russell,
Yeah.
Russell Ave, and all that section is asbestos. Portion of Brownstone Avenue on the southerly end is asbestos. We have asbestos up in the Myrtle Road area, All Hill Road, we have asbestos. How many miles, I have the number, but I can't tell you. It's a lot.
But the Gildersleeve area, that's old too, right?
Gildersleeve
Or you don't have
area,
the pressure down there, what is that?
Gildersleeve area, you have it also down in Edgewood.
You do, okay.
Yeah, for example, Summer Street, we just did, that's ductile or cast.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think as we go. The Gildersleeve area, yeah, the Edgewood
Right.
Road is, that's asbestos. You got a lot of asbestos,
Mhm.
unfortunately, and that stuff is, I
So
mean, you
it
take,
would
you
be a
take
lot.
the cast iron we got from the reservoir 1895 down, all the way down street, and we just cut into it to put a valve in, and the stuff looks very, very good, and
Mhm.
it's a material thing.
But if you were to replace, even if you started now and had 10 miles of pipe, you're not
It's
gonna
forever.
even do a
It's
mile
forever. I mean,
a year.
a practical approach or another approach, if you wanna look at it, is we could, you could, for example, you could do it by a development is one way. So many, I could tell you it would be this much, particularly to do, for example, Proud Acres, you could say we're gonna set aside $1 million every year and do, I mean, there's any number of ways, but to crack the whole nut,
Yeah,
uh-uh.
can't just
you
do
will,
that.
I don't know. And you don't need to necessarily.
So what do you want to do? Sure, I think so.
I-
Yep.
We have a motion, don't we?
No,
No.
no, there's no motion.
I'll make the motion that we make these priority for the steep grant, Spring Street construction of the water main as indicated by Mr. Kelsey, up to the maximum of $500,000.
Seconded.
Did you get that, Laura?
Seconded by Brian.
Discussion? As you know, there were other priorities. They included the recreational programs as well as roads and sidewalks and probably a number of other issues as well. We talked about additional needs for the sand salt storage shed. We talked about sewer extensions as well as sidewalk installation and repairs throughout the town, and other water main replacement and additions. So, you know, the list, as Brian pointed out, well, it does extend to many, many things. This would just be one of the many, many things that we need to do. Any other comments? Brian, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I mean, we're gonna talk about water and sewer rates in a moment. I mean, there are just these looming issues that it just seems that they have to be planned, you know, and I
Right.
think we really have to sit down and go through this and do this, because to me, it's just kind of doing patchwork stuff. I
Right.
know it needs to be done, but I don't know that that's the best approach, to be taking a grant here and kind of doing it. You know, I really think the board probably has to take some time, sit down, you know, over a weekend or something, and really prioritize these things and go through these. Because we talk about water, I don't know how long I've been on the board, 6 years, and we talk about water and sewer, and it's a big issue, and it needs to get fixed, and you know, I think, you know, I've been saying for forever that we need to hire a consultant, and, because I don't think anybody on this board is really equipped to make those types of decisions without some sort of independent consultant to come in and talk about what the problem is, what we need to do. I know there's other proposals about MDC, whatever it is, it just needs to be addressed, and, you know, so we're gonna fix this, and then you're gonna have another problem, and, you know, you're gonna be scrambling to do something about it, and I think we need to sit down and whether it's bonding or what it is, but I think it needs to be planned, so it's not, this has been going on for I don't know how many years, and now people who happen to be back taxpayers now are gonna pay for this, as opposed to it being paid, you know, over a period of time by the users. It just doesn't make sense to me that it's done that way.
You know, if we get the grant though, the taxpayers aren't paying for it.
Although that grant could be used for something else, so you know, it's just.
But if it breaks in the meantime, like Rick
I
said,
don't
we're at
just.
50,000.
I'm not arguing that. I don't disagree that, you know, it needs to get taken care of. I'm not arguing that at all.
But that the taxpayers would be responsible for if it breaks again in the
Sure,
meantime.
sure.
So, you know, we do have to stop the bleeding.
I guess my point is that it sounds like this has been falling apart for years, and it should be addressed earlier. And there should be a program or a plan set up to deal with this, as opposed to,
And I think it'll be-
however long, you know, it's just.
It's a financial plan
It's a
as well
financial- yeah,
as
sure.
a need plan, and you'll see very shortly, and I think you heard that from MDC when they came, is that the water and sewer infrastructure in the whole country is in need. It's not just the town of Portland, it's.
I'm not suggesting that either, but I
everywhere.
think MDC, what they're doing is that they're spreading that pain or cost across
Yep.
everybody as you go along, as opposed to, for lack of a better way of saying this, some people going for a free ride for a while, then all of a sudden, everybody's paying for everything that needs to be repaired.
What do you mean by a free ride?
Well, I don't know, if I lived in this town for 20 years and I didn't pay anything for it, and then I move out of town and some new person comes in, they're paying all the money to fix this problem that should have been fixed all along and taken care of. It doesn't seem the appropriate way to plan things.
But the water main that we replaced on High Street is being spread over, is that a 20-year or 30-year loan?
25.
It's a 25-year loan.
So the 22-year-old kid who moved to Portland last year, they're paying for that, but somebody's been, you know, as opposed to the people who have used it for 25 years before. It just seems like it should be planned accordingly, so it's not a big lump sum that whoever happens to live here is gonna pay for.
But when you bond, right, you're paying as you go.
Correct. Well, that's my point. I guess you should be paying as you go, as opposed
Right.
to, at some point, you know, here's a problem, everybody's gonna pay for it who happens to be sitting there at the moment. It just,
If I could?
yeah.
We, I don't want it to seem that we don't plan accordingly. We actually are bound.
And don't get me wrong, I'm
No,
not
no, no, I'm not,
suggesting that
I'm
at
not,
all.
but
I just,
but it
yeah.
needs to be said.
Yeah.
We're required by the Public Health Department to do a water supply plan every 5 years, which we do. In that plan, we are supposed to, and we do, propose 5-year improvements, 10-year improvements, 50-year improvements, which we do diligently. It's a financial situation. We've
You're gonna
been
see
coming
that in a
to-
few
You know, I
minutes.
personally, for 20 years, have been coming to the board and asking for adequate monies. In the meantime, the workforce has been reduced, probably by, in that case, by more than 50%. The funding has not been available, and we're gonna talk very shortly about, so, I mean, it would be kind of foolish for me to come to you with a $1 million or $2 million or $5 million plan when we're going the other way. So, I mean, we do have plans, and we do plan accordingly for what should be done. It's all in my water supply plan, and it's the right thing.
And what we have been talking about, and Brian's right, we've been talking about this, and what I've asked is, and as we formulated a committee, and the committee has not been able to address it. So there might be another way to approach this, and what I want to do, short of hiring someone, is I want to present to the board in a series of meetings, information. Now, we've started this previously, and tonight, what I've done is I put packets together, and we've started a little bit of information on rates. And then when you come the next time, it'll still be on the agenda, and we'll add some information to that, and I'll take the packets with me. The full board is the Water Authority, and the full board is the Sewer Authority, and we have advisors who are here tonight, 2 members of the Water and Sewer Advisory Commission. You do need to take a look at the rates. We do need to look at the infrastructure, and we do need to look at how you provide water service and sewer service, and whether or not you want to expand it, whether or not it's going to stay with the very small number of customers that we have. But you're going to see, I think, in a few minutes, that the problem is the number of customers that we have. It's very small. And to spread the cost for only the users is not a typical way of paying for water and sewer. And you'll see that from MDC and Connecticut Water and other water companies as well. So this is not just for water users, not just for sewer users, but in many communities, the entire community pays, or if it's a district, the entire district pays. And the cost is spread over not only time, but it's also spread over more customers. And that should be our goal in terms of trying to manage the services that are provided in our town. But short of getting into that topic, I think we do have a motion on the table. Start a little bit of discussion. I think we're ready for the question. So all in favor of the motion as Laura's going to read to us?
A motion by Fred Mouse to make the Spring Street project a priority of the state grant as presented by Rick Kelsey, seconded by Brian.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So Rick, tomorrow you have the grant started? Thank you. Okay, the next item is water and sewer rates. And if we could turn to our packets, I'd like to walk you through this. I don't expect any particular decisions tonight, but I do hope that we have a discussion. And previous to starting, the chairman of our Water and Sewer Advisory Commission asked if he could speak to you, and that's Dick Cody.
You have any extra packets? That's all right, I'll show
I
you.
don't, I'm
I'll show-
sorry.
That's all right, I don't.
If you have all the information, Rick, I just didn't make a lot of copies.
No problem.
Okay. Dick, did you want to address the?
Well, I would like to adjust the rates.
Yep, sure.
I just got your packet here. Unfortunately, I'm not the bearer of good news. Historically, bearer of bad news is not popular. But I agree with Brian on who pays for what. Somebody shouldn't pay for somebody else's services. And when we met on November 3rd, we sent a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and I'll read it to you. At the November 3rd, 2014 Water and Sewer Commission meeting, recommended that the Board of Selectmen increase water and sewer rates appropriate to balance the current operating budget and determine a schedule to amortize the debts in each of these budgets. Now, if we go back to September of 2013, the Water Department had a deficit of $97,307. The Sewer Department had a deficit of $279,000. Now, earlier, several years earlier, we came to the board and requested increases in those rates. I think the board recommended a 3% increase for 5 years, was it?
Mhm.
Okay, well, that was not adequate, and it really was not adequate when it was decided on. We had made a recommendation of something higher. The present situation right now is that the Water Department started the year with a $97,307 deficit. Revenues were $1,022,000. Expenses were $1,189,000. And the deficit presently in the Water Department is in excess of $263,000. The deficit in the Sewer Department we don't have, but on September of 2013, it was $279,000. The finance director did not have the figures ready for us at the time, but it's estimated there will be approximately a $60,000 deficit in the sewer operating budget. And it's our recommendation that the rates be increased immediately to balance the operating budget, and then a schedule be set up to amortize the deficits. And like Selectman Flood said, that somebody shouldn't be paying for someone else's services. Well, if I've lived in this town for several years, I've been underbilled knowingly in my sewer and water fees, and I leave this town, and the guy that buys my house all of a sudden gets a large bill to pay for a deficit because I was underbilled. And as far as my personal opinion, or from the commission's perspective, you should address this immediately. Increase the rates to balance the budget, increase them beyond that to start paying off the deficit. As far as the town taking over all the deficits, I just spent $3,400 on my well. So, you know, us people on wells and septic systems do have operating expenses. I'll answer any questions.
Well, what I'd like to do before we get into the discussion is present what's in the packets, because I think it's
I'm
germane
not
to what
prepared
you're
because I
talking
just got
about.
the packet tonight.
Yeah, they did too. But it's information that I think we're all aware of. I agree.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information here that has been presented previously. This is nothing new. But it is information that I'm going to reiterate with the board,
Well,
and it's a
Is this
start.
the proposed, this is the proposed, I just want to know
No,
what your
no.
proposed.
My proposal is simply very mathematical. We have an operating deficit in sewer and water. We should adjust the rates to cover that operating deficit. We have a further deficit of past due.
Mhm.
We should have a second adjustment to cover the operating deficit of past years. But it's getting, if you look at it, it's getting, the deficit gets bigger by thousands of dollars, by $2,000-3,000 a week perhaps. And we should address this now, not discuss it for 2 months. And my recommendation is that the Board of Selectmen address the sewer and water rates immediately.
Thank you.
Thank
What I've put in your packets, the first handout that you have is a refresher on the water and sewer rates. And if you look at May 1, 2013, Town of Portland, public hearing, there was a similar suggestion for a public hearing in 2014, and the selectmen decided that you don't have that.
Oh,
That
okay,
it
sorry.
that the rates would not be increased, because you wanted to review the rates. So you didn't do it. You didn't do it in the 5th year of the 3% increase. So the last time the rates were increased were May 1st, thereabouts, which was the public hearing date. And the water sewer rates were $3.77 per 100 cubic feet for water, and it was proposed to go up to, and which it is now, $3.88 a 100 cubic feet. The sewer usage rate at that time, on May 1, 2013, was $4.82, and it went to the proposed increase of $4.96, which is what sewer users are paying now for the 100 cubic feet. And I also included on the next page the rates that had gone up in 2012. They'd gone from $3.66 to $3.77 for water, and from $4.68 to $4.82 for sewer. And in April of 2011, there was a rate increase, and they had gone from $3.55 to $3.66, and the sewer usage rate had gone from $4.54 to $4.68. And in 2010, the rates were also increased, and they had not been increased previously since 2006. So from 2006 to 2010, the rate was $3.45 per 100 cubic feet, and it went to $3.55 at that point, and it went from $4.41 for sewer usage to $4.54 for sewer usage. So from 2006, it was $3.45 for water. Today, it's $3.77. And its sewer usage rate in 2006 was $4.41, and they're now $4.82 per 100 cubic feet.
So what was this proposed number? Was this what we didn't raise it by this year?
No, this was in 2013, and those rates were implemented. Correct,
Okay.
Rick?
I believe the present rates are $3.88 per hundred.
And
for
$4.96.
water, and $4.96 for sewer.
Right, and we did not increase in 2014. There was a discussion and there was a decision, a consensus that we wouldn't raise, and that we would do this discussion instead. Okay, the next set of information that you have, let's see, we can use this one. Is this what's next in your packets? Kathy is looking at this one.
Yep.
You wanna look at this one? All right, let's look at this one.
Good.
There's no title to it, but it says rates comparison. And this would be, users pay per 100 cubic feet, and they also pay a quarterly fee. So a 5/8 inch meter, which is what most customers have, 2,167 customers have, they pay a base of $15 a quarter. Now, if you were a Connecticut water customer, the next column, you would be paying $31.06 per quarter. If you were a Connecticut water user just in the town of Portland, there's a very small company over in the Wellwind Drive area. They pay $67.11 per quarter as a base. And then on top of that, you pay for your usage, those rates I just explained. For MDC customers, they are paying $40.44 a quarter as their base. There is a surcharge for those who live outside of the district, and that's $49.74 per quarter. And then in Glastonbury, there's an MDC special capital improvement surcharge of $6.33. So if you're a customer in that town, it's estimated that you would pay per quarter as a base $96.51. So you can see there's quite a difference among the options here in terms of the base rate. Now, as you go down the column, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, those are all different size meters. Those are bigger customers, and you'll see there's very few customers in our district that have the bigger meters. The 3/4 inch and the 1 inch meters, they pay also the $15 base. You see that Connecticut Water in Portland, MDC numbers are higher. So for example, the 1 inch for the town that I mentioned earlier, they would pay a base total of $118 per quarter for a 1 inch meter. And the Connecticut Water quarterly would pay $77.62 and so forth. You can read those charts yourself.